All right, guys, go ahead and move over to the NFL with some unfortunate news from Dallas. By now, I'm sure everyone's heard about the injury to Dak Prescott on Sunday. The Cowboys quarterback suffered a compound fracture and dislocation of his right ankle in the third quarter of the Giants game. He was carted off the field, and he will miss the rest of the season. Prescott was playing on a $31 million franchise tag after failing to get a long-term deal done with the Cowboys this offseason. This year was already pretty boom or bust for Dak, and this injury seems to lean more to the latter. Obviously, he leaves the Cowboys at 2-3, with both wins coming against winless teams, but somehow still atop the NFC East. Jay, can the Cowboys move on with Dalton, and how much does this hurt Dak's chances to secure a long-term deal?
Let me gloss over the first part of that because it's the latter part that we really want to get to. Sure, they can move on with Dalton. I mean, you saw what Dalton did heroically against the Giants, coming in there and just throwing that absolute dime to Michael Gallup to set up the game-winning field goal. I mean, what an accomplishment! I mean, we know how formidable the Giants are. Oh wait, they're not. But I mean, listen. when you look at Dak Prescott, and he's been a fixture on this program for since its inception, really, and just the seemingly no one knows, no one has a beat on Dak Prescott and the contract and what have you. Remember, we had people for a year now since Ezekiel Elliott got signed, La'el Collins got his money, Jalen Smith. I mean, the list goes on and on. Everyone got their money seemingly except Dak Prescott, and yet people still had the audacity to come out here and say, oh, no, they're going to get a deal done. They're going to get a deal done. I assume, I guess, given what we heard from Stephen Jones lately, that I guess that's still the position that they're taking. I don't buy it, just like I didn't buy any of it when we were waiting on him to get the contract. Although I got to tell you, they tried. I mean, 5 years at $34.5 million per year? I don't know. That's, what is that, right around what Russell Wilson's making? And Russell Wilson, what is he, one of the two front runners for MVP right now? And we know Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's no MVP. I mean, the guy's playing well. I mean, he's a solid NFL quarterback. But in terms of wins and losses, the past a year plus now, he leaves a lot to be desired. I said this, it's in the opening of our show. If you want to get paid, you're gonna have to win something, and win something of consequence. I mean, you play in the NFC East, which is on one hand, the Eagles are an infirmary year after year, and the Giants, they're just terrible. And the team in our nation's capital, they don't even have an identity. I mean, they probably came in. They probably they came and filed tax returns properly. So listen, Dak Prescott, I find it hard to believe, and I know Stephen Jones said, Dak's our future. Well, I mean, that seems a little bit premature to be making that claim. That seems like a little feel-good claim, like, yeah, we got you, we're gonna take care of you. Dak Prescott's playing on a franchise tag. So I got to be honest. I can see a real scenario. We're going to be right back at the same place, after the Cowboys are inevitably, they'll miss the playoffs. And then after the Super Bowl, we'll be back here at the same point talking about what they're going to do with Dak. They could very easily just franchise him again. I mean, it was a what do you say? Let's not say it. Well, I'm going to say it. It's the best way to say it. Make or break here. That's what it was. But in reality, he was deprived of that opportunity to have a make or break year because of the injury. That's just what happened. I can see it's real easy to see for me that come next year, you can be back at the negotiating table, and you can't tell me that Dak Prescott come next year is going to be in a better negotiating position than he just was. That's just not going to be the case coming off an injury. One of the big things that you like about Dak Prescott before this season was his durability. Talking about, 4 years, 64 games, never missed a snap. He missed it was a headline that he missed a practice one time last year. So we know his durability up to this point is not to be questioned, but now you're dealing with this serious ankle injury, which, I mean, you see highlights of it on ESPN, and they're what are they doing? They're making the picture of the ankle fuzzy because it was that unsightly. But listen, when you talk about Andy Dalton, like I said, coming there and, getting it done against the Giants, I really don't believe there's a huge drop-off in talent between Dak Prescott and Andy Dalton. I don't. And it's going to be – the Cowboys are going to be a fascinating case study for the rest of the season because the division is absolutely in play. I mean, the Washington and the Giants, they're not going to be a factor. The Eagles are going to be there, but I mean, will they be healthy? And what do we make of the early season struggles of Carson Wentz? And then, you know, some of the injuries they're having, whether it be the offensive line, whether it be the wide receivers. I think Dak Prescott, in some shape or form, I think he's got to be a little concerned about how the Cowboys perform without him. Andy Dalton can easily come into this offense and drop dimes to the likes of Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup. He can do that. Now, he does have some things going against him, the same things working against Dak Prescott. The offensive line is somewhat in shambles. We know Travis Frederick retired. Lyle Collins is out for the year. Now Tyron Smith is out for the year. So what was a huge strength is now a little bit of a question mark. And then, of course, defensively, and let's get into that. Well, my Lord, they're absolutely horrible. And you just can't get around this. Cowboys offensively, they're first in total yards, first in passing yards, they're third in scoring offense. Defensively, it's the other way around. They're 27th overall, 20th against the pass, 27th against the rush. And then they're giving up 36 points a game, which, spoiler alert, is dead last. They're also dead last in turnover differential. They're at a -8 already. And for whatever reason, and part of this, listen, we talked about this last year, some of these empty numbers that Dak Prescott puts up. Well, in the past 4 weeks against the Falcons, which they miraculously won that game, they were down at 3 separate points by 2 touchdowns. They were down by 20, they were down by 16, and then with 5 minutes left, they were down by 15. Found a way to get that done, but against Seattle, hard to overcome a Russell Wilson team when you get down by 15. And then before they, you know, made it somewhat close against Cleveland, they were down 41-14. And even against the Giants, they got down by 2 touchdowns early. So they just make a habit out of getting down early. And then next thing you know, it's Dak Prescott leading the comeback charge and accumulating all these wonderful, wonderful passing numbers. I believe he's the first quarterback in NFL history to have 3 straight games of 450 or more passing yards. That looks real good. But in terms of wins and losses, not so good, especially when your 2 wins are against teams that are combined 0-10. In the big picture, I think Andy Dalton, it's plausible. Andy Dalton could lead this team to the playoffs. That's how bad the division is. And the schedule, if you look at it, it's not all that daunting. I mean, they got Pittsburgh and Baltimore, but within the conference, it's not that daunting. Even a team like San Francisco that they have later on, I mean, they don't even look that good right now. So there's a lot of winnable games on there. I think their defense cannot, in order for them to get to the playoffs, their defense cannot continue to be this bad. That will absolutely sabotage their playoff hopes. But if they can improve it at any degree, Cowboys still got the weapons to get this done, assuming the offensive line doesn't completely collapse. So yeah, I think Dak Prescott there's a lot to be worried about for him, and yeah, this is gonna hamper him towards getting that long-term deal.
Yeah, look, let's keep it short and sweet, and straight to the point. Hey, this injury couldn't come at a worse time for Dak Prescott. You heard what Jay said, and I'm gonna say it. Listen, this is a double negative for Dak Prescott. Double negative. One, if Andy Dalton comes out here and gives them any reason to consider not paying him, they're not going to pay him. And then on top of that, did we not just see what Carolina did to Cam Newton? He was the MVP. He took him to a Super Bowl. But they wasn't in a rush to re-sign him this season or even play him this season because he had a foot injury. We just seen what Dak Prescott ankle looked like on national TV. I feel bad for the guy. As soon as I seen the injury, I just said, why didn't you sign the first contract they gave you, man? I felt bad for him. I hear what Jay said, you know, we could very well be in this same position come beginning of next season. That's best case scenario if you ask me. I don't think they're going to sign him. Best case scenario, they do let him come back and sign a second franchise tag, and I'll be happy to hear that. But I think they just going to make sure he's healthy and then boot him out the door, and good luck on you and your future endeavors. And, you know, they'll figure out what they need to do with that quarterback position, because I think Andy Dalton's going to win enough games to make them say, this is a money-making business, and we need to go and make some money. So I feel bad for Dak. It's unfortunate. You never want to see that happen to a player, but you play a dangerous game. You knew you played a dangerous game when you decided not to sign that contract because you wanted a certain amount of years. You knew you was a quarterback. You also knew that it could be a chance that your last play could be your last play. You still did it anyway. As bad as I feel for him, I think this might be the end of the road for Dakota Prescott as far as being the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Dak a lot on the show several times before, and my stance hasn't changed all that much when I tell you that do not underestimate a somewhat above average quarterback ability to get paid in the NFL. I mean, it happens no matter what. Now, really, the question everyone has is like, does this really set him back? Like when he goes into the room next year, talk about contracts, because we all sitting here know they're not going to re-franchise tag him for $37 million. That would be the 1 year, fully guaranteed contract. So he's still going to get paid this year. Obviously, the tag's going to pay him through the end of the year, injury and all that aside. Fully guaranteed does work both ways, thankfully, for Dak. But obviously, the long-term outlook is, does this really change his long-term contract? And I think the one thing he did have going for him, and Jay is right in the sense that this isn't a good thing. This isn't going to help his value at all. But I would say that because he was statistically looking as good as he was, like the Cowboys' struggles were more about the defense than the offense. Now, obviously, Dak wasn't playing perfect, but 1,856 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 picks. He was leading the NFL in passer yards by over 400. I mean, Wilson was second with like 1,500. So, I mean, it was or over 300, sorry. But I think that leaving off of that statistical peak that he was at is going to help him a little bit, because it feels like this injury is going to be an injury you just come back from, you rehab, and that's it. He's going to get healthy in about March. He'll have the full off season, training camp and all that. So it's not like he's going to carry into the next year. Like, he'll be healthy by the time things open up in 2021. So do I think this is going to completely destroy his ability to long-term deal done? No, but I think, like you said, the big key really lies in if Andy Dalton takes over this team, which winning the NFC East wouldn't really be that hard, I mean, still. But if he is able to win the NFC East, or at least, get to the playoffs, wins a playoff game, does the whole deal, Andy Dalton's like a $3 million contract this year. I mean, you're going to get him back for a fraction of what Dak Prescott gets you. So if the Cowboys get the offseason and go, well, hey, we can get Dalton to do 80% of what you do. And this is the conversation we had before, was why would I just pay Dalton a fraction to have 80% of what Dak does? So if the Cowboys start struggling even more and they start losing game after game after game, I don't think we have this conversation, and Dak gets his money in the offseason and everything goes along. Remember, Watson and Mahomes still reset the market completely. So every salary is going to inflate, whether they're good or bad or in between. But if Dalton really takes over this team, leads them, and does the whole red rifle rocket, whatever we call him, thing, this is going to be bad for Dak. He's going to really have a hard time convincing the Cowboys he's worth it with all the other holes they got to fill. But I'll leave on the final point, which is teams, invest in your backup quarterback. Don't just find some random dude living in a box outside the stadium and just have him come on in for a tryout. Think about your backup quarterback, because the Cowboys can still win the NFC East easily, because they decided to take 5 minutes and spend a little bit of money on a backup quarterback that can actually do something. So draft a quarterback and think about that position every now and then. Thank you.